My name is Ethan Morris. I'm 50 years old, and I run an art gallery with a deep love for the arts. Together with my wife, Catherine, we strive to bring wonderful pieces to art enthusiasts. We've got a steady stream of regular customers, and business is going well. We often receive exhibition requests from art students through our connections, and we rarely turn them down. The fresh perspectives from young artists often attract new customers. Honey, what kind of artwork should we exhibit next? Well, how about focusing on American painters? Maybe we could arrange them by their home states. It might be interesting. Discussing the future of our gallery together like this was a great way to communicate, and one of our joys. One day, we got a call from a familiar art dealer. He said he had found a hidden gem and wanted us to come see it. We've known this dealer since our younger days, and he once aspired to be an artist himself, so he has a keen eye. There was an unusual excitement in his voice. I immediately agreed to go see it. I took Catherine and drove to the dealer's office, where he showed us a piece kept in a secret room at the back. I was speechless for a moment. It was truly a masterpiece, something you don't often get to see. I felt the thrill of working with art and was secretly excited. This is amazing. It's a recent work, right? It's sure to create a buzz. Yes, and it's by a domestic artist. It's exactly what we need right now. The displayed piece was a large oil painting, so powerful that you could stare at it for hours. I could imagine the faces of our regular customers who would love this style. Should we display this at our gallery? Yes, there are so many customers who would love to see this. It seemed Catherine was thinking the same as I was. We immediately agreed and started negotiating with the dealer. The piece was only for sale, priced at $100,000. For a piece of this quality, $100,000 is a steal. Even if it doesn't sell, just having it in the gallery will attract people. It's decided. I was thrilled about this major acquisition. Worried that another customer might snatch it up, I decided to buy it on the spot. Catherine took the car to withdraw the cash from a bank a little further away. I decided to wait for Catherine while talking about another matter with the art dealer. However, even when it seemed like she should have returned by now, Catherine hadn't come back. The conversation with the art dealer had run its course, and since she was taking so long, I started to get worried. Maybe the bank was crowded? Or was there a traffic jam? Or worse, an accident? The sun was starting to set, and it was around the time the bank would be closing. Worried about Catherine, I excused myself to the art dealer and stepped outside the office. In this area, there's hardly anyone around when it gets late. I looked around the street, but there was no sign of a car that might be hers. In front of the art dealer's office, there's a big park where we had parked the car when we arrived. Feeling uneasy, I wandered into the park. There were several impressive trees planted here, creating a calming space, but the streetlights were sparse. It was the season where you could feel the chill, and the park surrounded by plants was getting dim. "Hey old man, can I have a word with you?" I was startled by the sudden blunt voice from behind and turned around. There stood a big man glaring at me while chewing gum. He was wearing a loose black shirt, and his clothes were untidy, giving a sloppy impression. The man must have weighed twice as much as me. His tone and mannerisms were rough, not the kind of person I'd usually interact with. "What do you want?" "Don't stare at me, old man. I'm interested in your wallet." "My wallet? Why do you want my wallet? You came out of that art dealer's office, didn't you? You must have money. Hand it over." What a simple-minded thought. Why assume I have money just because I came out of the art dealer's office? Besides, I had no obligation to give him my money. I wanted to believe it was a joke, but the man's demeanor was intimidating. It didn't seem like a situation that could be laughed off. Before I knew it, several large men had gathered behind him. This area has a lot of art dealers. Guys like you, flaunting your wealth, are all over the place. It makes me sick to see people like that. They look down on us. I bet you think you're better than me. You think you live in a different world, don't you? Just because you're rich, living in luxury. I'm here to teach guys like you a lesson on behalf of society. What a terrible misunderstanding. Is this what it means to be harassed? The man's words were filled with assumptions and accusations, making any conversation impossible. It was practically slander. When I stayed silent, a voice from behind the man said, "John, Let's just finish him off already." The men aiming for my money were eagerly waiting for their turn. Reluctantly, I tried to clear up the misunderstanding and spoke. "I look like an ordinary person, and I live a modest life. I don't have any money to give you. I was at the art dealer for work. Please, don't misunderstand and leave me alone." I tried to be as polite as possible, hiding my confusion, but the man called John wasn't convinced at all. Rich people always have excuses like that. What's an art dealer gonna do for your life? I don't get why anyone would value something so useless. I saw you talking to that art dealer. Stop lying. If you keep babbling, we're gonna do it ourselves. The men revealed their rough nature and attacked me. The men behind John also started moving, thinking this was their chance. Already large and imposing, they rushed at me in a group. I couldn't even resist. First, they hit me in the face, knocking out any remaining will to fight. A hot sensation spread across my face. Next was my stomach, right around the liver. A heavy blow echoed through my body. Even a strong man couldn't stay standing after a hit like that. I collapsed to the ground with just 2 punches. The smell of fresh grass tickled my nose. John, kicking the ground with his shoe, said with boredom, "What, you giving up already? You're a spineless old man. Where's your wallet? Hand it over." Not satisfied with just hurting me, he still demanded money. "I told you, I don't have any money to give you." Still talking back? Looks like you need more attention. Do it, guys. At John's signal, the men treated me like a soccer ball and beat me up. My whole body hurt in countless places, and when I touched my face, my hand was covered in blood. But fortunately, or unfortunately, I really had no money on me. I always use the bank for transactions, so I only carry the bare minimum. Eventually, one of the men searched my body and pulled out my wallet from my pocket. Seeing the large wallet, maybe he thought it was full of money, and I whistled. "Hey, you finally found it. I'll take that now." John happily peeked inside the wallet, but it didn't seem to contain an amount he was satisfied with. After taking out a few bills, he irritably tossed my wallet into the bushes and yelled, "Why do you only have this much? Looking so shabby. It's weird that someone like you would be hanging around art dealers. Where are you hiding the rest of the money? I could strip you down right here if you keep trying to fool us. In your condition, you can't even move. I told you, I'm just a regular guy." John clicked his tongue, spat gum onto my face, and snarled, "Stop babbling. Hand over the money before I break your bones." His rough words filled me with disgust. The gum John spat at me was sticky and incredibly gross. If I could, I wanted to be free of this and take a shower at home immediately. The burly men surrounded me in a circle, slowly closing in. They still seemed full of energy. No wonder, John was probably in his early 30s. The men with him looked to be in their 20s. I could hear my own heartbeat. For the first time in my life, I felt my life was in danger. The men grabbed at my clothes. Finally, I spread my arms and shouted to shake them off. "Wait, my wife is getting $100,000 from the bank right now." The men twitched and then stopped moving. John also let out a small sigh. Well, you're quite loaded. That's the highest amount I've ever gotten. If you had said that from the start, we wouldn't have had to waste our energy. You were this close to losing your life, you know that? Is your wife coming here?" "Yes, she should be here soon." "Let me contact her, please." I took out my phone from my pocket, but it was broken from their rough handling and unusable. "What's the matter? Contact her already." "Well, the phone is kind of. You're useless at the crucial moment, old man." John's expression turned openly irritated, and he snorted loudly. Just when I thought I was doomed, I heard a car engine in the distance. "My goodness, what happened to you?" Catherine saw me and rushed over. When Catherine tried to park the car in front of the park, she was surprised to see me surrounded by a group of unfamiliar large men. "Catherine, it's dangerous. Don't come over here." "What's this? Is that your wife we've been waiting for?" Even from her perspective, Catherine could tell I was in a dire situation. However, she fearlessly jumped into the circle of men. "Please, Catherine, at least you escaped." Contrary to my anxiety, Catherine calmly raised one hand and looked around at the road facing the park. Through the gaps in the trees, A large number of luxury cars began to invade the park. I widened my eyes in surprise, but John was even more shocked, falling on his rear in a very clumsy and undignified manner. With this, he wouldn't be able to set an example for his subordinates. Sure enough, his men panicked. As Catherine took advantage of the distraction to help me up, I whispered to her, "Did you do that?" She smiled as if it were only natural. Yes, I thought something like this might happen. Even faced with the giant mafia members, she didn't seem intimidated at all. Despite being my wife, her confident demeanor was reassuring. For someone like her, who deals with shrewd art dealers, this kind of situation was nothing to panic over. John, struggling to get up due to his large body, crawled over to me and asked, his shoulders heaving and breathing heavily, "Hey, what the hell is this? Isn't only one old lady supposed to come back?" Unlike me, Catherine was unscathed and stood tall as she answered, "Too bad. Looks like you were wrong. Damn it, I don't get what's going on." John seemed extremely confused. Seeing the cars around, his eyes darted frantically. Catherine raised one hand again, just like before. Then, men dressed in black began to step out of the cars, one after another. Extremely a lot. Their number was not ordinary, roughly around 70 men. They were impeccably coordinated, and upon closer inspection, the numerous luxury cars that had stopped completely blocked John's escape route. The luxury cars that filled the wide park created a strange atmosphere. Even as twilight approached, their imposing presence remained undiminished. Eventually, a few of the men in black approached me and provided first aid. After assessing my wounds and reassuring me that there was nothing to worry about, I finally managed to regain some composure. "I'm so relieved you all came," Catherine said, watching me with a sigh of relief. "Yeah, it's a real help. But wow, that's a lot of people. Didn't you go overboard?" "It's okay. The boss told us not to hold back," she replied. "It was indeed on the boss's orders. In fact, our gallery has a regular customer who is the boss of a large mafia family. The boss has always supported us wholeheartedly and had said he would help us anytime." This time, Catherine, who was tasked with carrying cash for a big transaction, had asked for protection. In response to Catherine's request, the boss himself came with a total of 70 men. The sheer number of people caused traffic congestion, which delayed their return. Everywhere I looked, tough-looking men were staring intently at us. The unusual scene sent a shiver down my spine. To mobilize this many people, "Who are you guys?" "I told you, we're just regular business people," one of them said. "That's a lie, no way." At that moment, a deep voice of a middle-aged man echoed from behind John. "What do you want with Ethan?" "Who are you?" John shouted. The man who appeared was none other than the boss we had just been talking about. Clearly, the situation was serious, but seeing me all battered and being treated, the boss seemed to grasp everything. The boss confronted John with a loud voice. "What the hell do you think you're doing? This isn't how a civilian acts, is it? You did terrible things to Ethan. Name your family and yourself." John, trying to put on a brave face, introduced himself, but his hands were trembling. I could clearly see him clenching his thick hands to stop the shaking. "Oh, you belong to that family, huh? Pathetic. Seems like you haven't learned your lesson. I disciplined you the other day, yet you're still up to these vile tricks. All of you are nothing but fools," the boss spat. It seemed that the family John belonged to was in an antagonistic relationship with the boss. There seems to have been some trouble in the past. At the sight of the boss's furious outburst, John trembled with fear this time for sure. "No, this isn't about the family business. It's personal for us." "Oh, you've got some nerve. That makes it even better. You think you can escape this army?" With those words as the signal, the black-clad army charged at John and his group. Dust billowed up from the dry ground of the park, quickly enveloping their figures. Even though John and his large crew had beaten me up badly, there was no way they could handle this many. The ring formed by numerous luxury cars turned into an all-out brawl. From the center of the ring, the shouts and screams of men could be heard continuously. "Boss, are you sure it's okay to be this flashy?" "Don't worry, I'm not an amateur. We won't mess this up." I nodded at the boss's words. This place was already sparsely populated to begin with. The nearby stores were closing, and it was getting completely dark, leaving no witnesses. The park quickly became the stage for the duel, and the men moved freely. The boss's group's movements were several times sharper, more precise, and more effective than John's crew. John's men were quickly cornered, being taken down one by one. John held on until the end, but being recognized as the leader of the group, was treated particularly harshly. The sight was so exhilarating that I forgot my own injuries and watched them intently. Soon, the dust began to settle, revealing the black-clad group unscathed and a heap of mafia bodies. The sight of the exhausted mafia lying in front of the large cars was spectacular. The black-clad group not only had numbers, but also tremendous combat skills. In this situation, they completed the big job without a single person faltering. It was clear at a glance that the mafia couldn't match them in either numbers or strength. Having lost the will to fight, the mafia lay limply. John's movements grew sluggish, and he eventually collapsed on the spot. It seemed he had finally reached his limit. His plump cheeks looked gaunt with sweat and dirt, making him look like a completely different person from earlier. On the other hand, the black-clad group looked cool and composed, showing no signs of fatigue. They seemed to say that defeating a group of mafia was a piece of cake for them. Eventually, the ring of the black-clad group tightened around John and his men. The boss mercilessly forced the exhausted mafia members to sit on the ground. "All right, let me ask you again. Did you try to take money from Mr. Ethan here?" "Yes." "You admit it." "I heard from the member who treated him that Mr. Ethan's injuries are quite severe. Even though his life isn't in danger, this can't be overlooked. This isn't the first time you've done something like this, is it?" Terrified by the boss's calm yet commanding demeanor, John shrank back. "We've been doing the same thing around here for a while." "So you were picking fights with strangers?" The boss's expression grew even sterner. "He's angry on my behalf because of my injuries. It wasn't just anyone. I only targeted people like him, flashing their wealth, indulging in hobbies like buying art. Seeing people like that just pisses me off. You understand, don't you? It feels unfair that we bust our asses working while they live it up." "What part of busting your ass is this? You guys are just punks living off others' earnings." John fell silent, words catching in his throat. Deep down, he knew it was true. "Still, I can't forgive these people. Who knows how they got the money to buy their art? Don't give me that crap. You don't know how they earned their money. But what about you? How many people have you sacrificed up to now? Who knows how many? You've done it so many times you lost count. What did you spend the money you extorted on?" "I don't remember every little thing. We drank a lot and split the rest. I spent my share on booze and women. What a waste. And no one reported you?" "Nope, we're not that stupid. We beat them to a pulp, made sure they knew they'd get worse if they talked. They knew they'd be dead if they squealed." John's confession made the boss stomp his feet in rage. Such cowardly and disgraceful acts. Sure, this area has a lot of art dealers. Naturally, many clients come here with money to buy art. But preying on them repeatedly, even for the mafia, that's crossing the line. Moved by the boss's genuine anger, I couldn't help but speak up. "You're absolutely right. Even though I deal in expensive items, I live a normal life." I told them that clearly, but they wouldn't listen, assuming everyone around here was rich and trying to take all they had. They took my money and tossed my wallet. Running a gallery is tough enough as it is. Hurting people who are trying their best, it's inhumane. The boss nodded deeply. He knows well enough about the struggles of running a gallery. Exactly. It's unacceptable to prey on people who are trying to provide quality art under tough conditions. Urging them to take their money? It's barbaric. How do you even come up with such vile ideas? Overwhelmed by the boss's words, John was unable to argue back. Despite the chilly weather, sweat was pouring down his forehead. "This is just terrible. Coming here today was the right call. I can't let scum like you ruin the art I love. Swear right now that you'll never do this again." The boss got right in John's face, yelling furiously. John deeply apologized, assuming a position similar to a full prostration. "I'm so sorry. I won't ever do it again. Please forgive me." Hey, you guys, apologize too. John roughly hit shoulders of his subordinates, and all the huge mafia members prostrated themselves. As the boss looked down at the mafiosos and took a breath, Catherine walked up and whispered something in his ear. The boss listened without changing his expression, then raised one hand to signal to the surrounding black-clad group. All right, that's enough. With just one word from the boss, the men in black quickly got into their cars and drove away like scattered spiders. It took only a few seconds. The men disappeared as if they were never there. John and his men looked relieved, feeling like they were saved. They probably felt freed now that the boss and his men were gone. John, trying to manage his legs that had gone numb from kneeling, began to stand up. Can you guys stand? Let's get out of here. The huge mafia members stood up shakily and started to walk away with unsteady steps. But as the sound of the black-clad group's engines faded, new engine sounds were heard, and it seemed like it wasn't just one or two cars. In this usually quiet area, such noise was unusual. Just like John and his men, I looked around. What came next was a sight that made me doubt my own eyes: a large number of police cars. The police cars lined up in front of the park, and from them, a large number of men rushed out. What the hell is this? What's going on? Hey, old man, did you call the cops? John glared at me, suspecting me. I didn't do anything. My phone was broken because of your attack. You saw that clearly, didn't you? Then how do you explain this situation? Who knows? I laughed it off. But I knew. It must have been Catherine who called the police. I was worried when she disappeared during the fight, but she probably stepped away to make the call. When I looked next to me, Catherine was back, smiling brightly. She had secretly called the police and then whispered to the boss to let the black-clad group escape before the cops arrived. I also explained the situation to the art dealer. They agreed to hold the peace for us. I was surprised by her calmness and quick thinking. She certainly has nerves of steel. Soon, the police surrounded the area. Today has been a day of being surrounded by all sorts of men. I finally regained enough composure to lament my bad luck. Following the officer's command to comply, John raised his hands in surrender. This time, he seemed to clearly understand that resistance was futile. The officers blocked John's group's path and quickly restrained them one by one. When they came at me, it was with a lot of force. I never imagined their situation would deteriorate so much in such a short time. It's only fair. They've done so much wrong, they deserve to be properly punished. Catherine gave me a look. Standing in her line of sight was a police officer. In the commotion, I had completely forgotten, but my body was covered in wounds and in terrible shape. As soon as I remembered my injuries, my whole body started to ache. The officer said he would accompany me to the hospital for an examination. The doctor confirmed my injuries and proved I was a victim. John and his group were apparently arrested in the act. The police were puzzled by the severity of their injuries, but we managed to get by, saying they had started fighting among themselves. Besides, no one would believe that a group of 70 black-clad men had come and beaten them up. Even I wasn't confident I could explain the scene well. John and his group, being part of the mafia, wouldn't dare admit they were attacked by another mafia group. John and his group paid for their crimes, and peace returned to the area where the art dealer was located. With improved safety, customer traffic increased. The art dealer told me that sales had grown. Now, to stay ahead of the competition, we'll have to keep a keen eye out and acquire masterpieces. It sounds tough, but for an art lover like me, it's a welcome challenge. Later, the painting we contracted that day arrived at our gallery. Its quality was indeed superb, so much so that it transformed the atmosphere of the gallery. I was so thrilled to have that painting in my space that I spent the whole night in front of it without sleeping. No matter how long I looked at it, I never got tired. It was a mysterious piece that continually inspired me. The first person to come see the painting was the boss. The boss looked at the artwork and let out a quiet sigh. Wow, this is amazing. A masterpiece. If my house were a bit bigger, I'd want to buy it myself. Please, take your time and enjoy it. It's thanks to you that we got this painting safely. I really appreciate your help. You saved my life. I'm glad I could help, and I'm grateful to see something this beautiful. There was a sense of camaraderie between the boss and me. Having successfully secured the painting, we had faced difficulties together, and it felt like we had overcome them as a team. The painting was quickly sold, and I made a significant profit. While it was hard to part with that painting, I'm satisfied that it went to someone who truly wanted it. Acquiring that masterpiece at great risk deepened my connections with other art dealers. I plan to use this experience as a stepping stone to find and acquire more great works in the future.